What is up, YouTube? This is Donkey Style Gaming, or DSG, and we are back at it again with another Anthem video for you guys today. And in this video, we are going to be talking about everything that the game director of Anthem, John Warner, spoke about and talked about in his Game Informer interview. And we're talking about a bunch of stuff that I've actually got a lot of questions that I've been getting questions from you guys about, like sniper rifles, a bit of information, even about the Interceptor and stuff like that. So I'll be covering that in this video. Now, his interview was about 45 minutes long. I'm gonna try and keep it shorter than that. That was the point of this video. I tried to condense all the notes, and I'm not gonna waste any more of your time. So let's just get into the actual video itself. So the first point and the first thing we pretty much talked about in the interview was about the story. He went more into detail about the story and mainly our characters in the story. So what he kind of gave us was, he said that our characters were going to be brash heroes and they're going to be voiced by brand new actors who are new to the BioWare company. He also went on to say that the freelancers have a long history that, essentially they're characters that have fallen from glory, and public perception of them is essentially pretty low. They said in game where we must drive to harken back to our glory days, essentially. And while we're in the game, there's a form of like awe and wonder in the world about people who look towards us. Now, they also talked a bit about the conflict in the game, and of course we're going to have our antagonists who are the Dominion, but they also said that there might be conflict within the crew ourselves and other things like that that we would have to make decisions on. Now, speaking of decisions, they did say that there will be branching dialogue options, but they'll be a lot more simplified than other games like Dragon Age and Mass Effect, just because this is more of a shared world concept. So it's not going to be as intricate as some of the other branching dialogue options in other BioWare games, but there still will be some in there. Now, back to, like I said, our freelancer, they said essentially when we start the game, they said we'll be starting fresh in the game, essentially meaning that we are new on the scene, and they're doing this intentionally so we don't have to go too much into the history or backstory of our created character, because they said that the history is pretty much what we make of it as we play and explore through Anthem itself. Now, they kind of just gave a brief, I guess, summary of the type of feel for the story, and what they essentially said that for their story, they wanted it to be an interesting story with classic adventure elements in it. So that's pretty much all the information they gave us on the story. It's kind of nice to see that they gave us a bit more information on, I guess, a mini backstory and bio on the freelancers and everything about us in game. Now, also, this is actually a side note. I meant to mention this in my Mark Dara videos. They did actually show the Dominion in the concept art. Apparently, it was shown off and we didn't actually notice it until somebody pointed it out on Twitter. So this picture right here, you see a person asking Mark Dara if this is the Dominion in their javelins, and he does reply yes. So that's the image of the tweet, and then I'm going to post another picture right here, which is a bigger image of the actual picture of the Dominion's javelin, which are the main antagonists in the game. Now, on to the next point, he covered pretty much perspective. Now, perspective, they said that they originally, when the game was supposed to when they first had their ideas of the game, they wanted the whole game itself to be entirely first person. But they said they wind up deciding to add a third person element into it later on because they wanted it for a better experience and to see the output of the javelin's actions in game. Which myself, I'm personally happy that it went that way and it's not the first person Destiny, Halo route that most, first person games like this tend to do. So I'm actually pretty happy about that, and it has a Warframe feel to it, to me at least. Now, also on perspective, they were talking about our characters and our customized characters, and I mentioned this in another video that I wasn't too upset that there's not a lot of facial customization in game of our freelancers, because I'm like, we really won't be able to see them much simply because we're in our javelins most of the time. Well, they did say that when looking at your pilot in your UI, you will be able to see the face of your javelin even more in the game. So I guess for those of you who are going to be heavy into trying to customize your freelancer and care about how they look, you'll be able to see it. But again, I don't think it's going to be that much, mainly because we're going to be in our javelins and customizing those a lot more than our freelancers themselves. So that's pretty much what he had to say on the perspective side of things. Now, this was a topic that was brought up in the Game Informer interview because apparently it's been getting a lot of heat just because it's a staple in BioWare games, which are romances and relationships. Now, when talking about it, they said their focus on this game was more about in-game camaraderie rather than a relationship. They said there perhaps might be some some flirtatious things happening in the game, but still it's mainly a journey about you, your crew, and the experiences you're going to have along in the world of Anthem, essentially. So there might be some relationships type, I guess some relationship issues, but it's not going to be front and center, and it may just be a back thing to other characters or even NPCs, but I doubt it'll have anything to do with us. Now, speaking of world and the things that are going to be happening in the world, that was the next point they went on to, and they were talking about the ever-changing world of Anthem, and they said that the ever-changing world concept is essentially not about the change in the world and the geometry of it, but it's about the day and night cycles, the weather cycles, which also bear impact in the game and can improve tactical choices you make, which I did mention in another interview, that they did mention that before, saying that in the world, other places that you kind of discover and go into, they could be either shortcuts into other locations in the map, or you could actually use them strategically for fights in the map. So that's just him essentially reiterating that fact more as well. Like I said, I did cover that though, but also onto the ever-changing world, which is more stuff that he's pretty much covered, but I still took down some notes of it. But because everything is on a dedicated server, they said they can control the world at will across all platforms, i.e., they said having creature migrations whenever they want, generating giant weather events, or something in the world that can turn into an event. So that could be something that happens that we, the players, can actually start to make an event happen in the world itself, which is pretty interesting. So that's something else he mentioned. And then he also kind of listed off a couple of enemies that we would see in the game. Now, no footage was shown, but again, it's kind of like, they're just names. So if you care to know what they are, it's Volgans, he said Ursex, and then giant ape-like insect creatures are some of the enemies that he wound up listing in the game. So that's that in terms of the world and everything that he kind of talked about in Anthem. Now, onto the actions of Anthem, they were talking about what all would be impacted the most in Anthem, and they said your Strider and Fort Tarsus will display the consequences of your actions in game. So branching options, whatever you decide to do in your own personal story, it'll affect not just Fort Tarsus, but apparently your Strider as well. So I'm wondering if other crew members might leave depending on what you actually happen to do in the game itself. So that was something that that I thought was pretty cool that they had said, was it's going to be your Strider as well. Like, we knew it was going to be Fort Tarsus, but your Strider and Fort Tarsus will, like I said, they said, display consequences of your actions. Now, they were also asked about mini games in Fort Tarsus, and they said that's to be decided at the moment. So there could be something more to do in Fort Tarsus rather than just walk around and collect objectives. I know Destiny has stuff like that at their tower, whether it's, you know, turning the big ball into a big traveler orb, or playing soccer down in the hangar. So they might have some form of a mini game at Fort Tarsus. They still said it's to be decided. Now, the next point that I kind of took note of when they were talking was missions and quests. That was brought up, and they were talking about what all you would be able to do in game. Now, these are just some of it. I kind of cover a bit more a little later on, but they did say there's going to be daily and weekly challenges. There'll also be your main missions, your side quests, and then repeatable activities in game. So they didn't go too much into detail on the repeatable activities, but everything else I've pretty much covered in other videos, like the daily and weekly challenges, the main missions, and your side quest, and then also they said repeatable activities, and they did say, which I've covered before, that you'll be able to repeat your story missions at will. So that's a thing. Now, on to multiplayer. They didn't go too much into detail with it. Like I said, I've pretty much covered more of it in a previous video, but they did say they didn't want to force players into social interactions, and they wanted to, the way that they did it, they said you can decide how you want to interact with players if you want, and even if there isn't anybody online, they wanted it to make it easy for you to go to Fort Tarsis, meet people as you want, and then, you know, pretty much jump into a mission or complete a story wherever it is you are in the game. So there's going to be an actual system implemented, especially if you don't have friends online to even play with. So I thought that was a cool little feature that they talked about. Now, some of this is actually kind of the I guess most important news that they kind of covered, which I thought was cool. This is a bunch of new information that they talked about. Well, first was leveling. They were talking about how damage and how helping other players who are lower level while you're a higher level in game will be. And they said that essentially leveling in game will be scaled. So it'll be scaled to your actual level. And they said difficulty and damage will be scaled to accommodate the level gap between different players. So pretty much playing with lower players and higher players shouldn't be an issue for anybody, because the enemies will scale to you. So you don't have to worry too much about that. You don't have to worry about going into a mission with a higher level player and not expecting to be able to complete it because the enemies may be too hard for you. Well, the enemies are going to scale to your level, and higher level players can go help lower level players as well, which, like I said, I like the concept, but I don't at the same time. So it kind of sounds like it'd be best to level at the same time, just so both players are fighting the same level enemies, and it would be easier to help out like that, I assume. But that's what I would take from that, at least. Now, on the armor, they were talking about the value of our armor, and essentially there is going to be a, I should say, light level system. It's not necessarily light level. They call it gear score is what it is. And they said your gear score is determined by the suit itself and the perks that you have enabled via your pilot stats and character profiles. So there will be a gear score, and I'm assuming that's going to be your in-game, like I said, leveling, like your light level, to determine what you can do closer towards the end game. What your gear score is may determine if this mission is too hard for you or too easy or whatnot. So that's what determines your actual light, or your gear score. I'm already calling it light level. Your gear score, which is your suit and the perks that you have, and your pilot stats as well. Now, what they also mentioned about suits, which I thought was interesting, and I kind of covered this in another video, they did say that your suits can be damaged in combat, but they will regain health. But you pick up your health by getting health packs in-game while you're fighting enemies and killing enemies. But they said this is pretty much like this, so that there's no real reason to repair your suits in-game. So it's not like, oh, your suit's extremely damaged, now you have to go get a whole nother javelin, or you got to build another piece for your suit. Essentially, like I said, there's health regens, or there's health packs in games that you get, and then there's no real repairs or maintenance needed for your javelins in game also. Now, this was something that I got a lot of people asking me questions for in my comments, and I'm glad they finally mentioned it, because I don't even think people even asked Mark Darrow on Twitter about this. But they asked about sniper rifles, and they did say they are balancing sniper rifles at the moment, but they will for sure be in the game. So there's your confirmation for everybody who asked me about sniper rifles. Sniper rifles are 100% confirmed to be in the game, but they're balancing them at the moment. We don't know who will have a sniper rifle, because as I mentioned in my previous videos, some javelins will be pretty much weapon locked to certain weapons in game. Like they said, the Colossus can't use pistols. Most of his guns are heavy weapons and whatnot. So this sniper rifles may be a specific weapon for a specific javelin type in the game, but we don't know that yet. But they will be in game at least. Now, onto your thrusters and flight and whatnot like that. They were talking about the different ways to cool off your jets, and I've pretty much covered most of them, but this is just some more. And then one new kind of bit of information that he said, of course, diving will cool off your thrusters, flying through waterfalls, and then also landing in water also will cool off your jets. But then something new that he mentioned was receiving ice damage will surprisingly cool off your jets. Yes, taking damage via ice apparently will cool off your jets too. And I did see somebody mention this in a question to Mark Darrow's asking if a ranger threw an ice grenade at somebody's jets, would it cool it off? And he actually didn't know at the time. So we at least know taking damage, ice damage will cool them off. So it'll be interesting to see if they implement the ice grenades cooling off your teammates' jets too. So I thought that was kind of funny, and that's something pretty cool to take note of as well. Now, on to weapons. There's not too much to cover in terms of weapons, but they did kind of go on to say that, as something else that I kind of wanted to know, they said that the more you progress in the game, you'll need to acquire new weapons to level up, because at the moment, currently, there's no way to modify your weapons. So, every weapon you get, essentially you want a higher level weapon is what it is. You can't actually mod, or there's no like real infusion system or nothing like that. So, in order for you to kind of level up and progress in game, you'll want to get a higher level weapon, because there is no way at the moment, at least, to modify your weapons and make them stronger. So don't get too attached to your weapons, because you'll probably need a better one a little later on. That's something I'm also waiting to see if they're going to go into in a later interview or comment or something like that, because I kind of do want to know if there's even going to be a level cap in the game. The way they make it sound, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a level cap, kind of like how Monster Hunter is at the moment. But if there isn't, that'd be really interesting. Plus, that would add to the longevity of the game. So I'd be 100% okay with that. Now, this is some more information that he kind of touched on that I'm happy he did too. This is some in-game information. Now, they've still been super hush-hush on a lot of in-game elements in the game, but they did kind of talk a bit more about what to kind of expect in the in-game. Now, when talking about it, they said pretty much in-game comes down to what players are looking for, or and what type of player you are. So, are you an explorer? Or are you a player that wants to pretty much pick up story and lore? There's that for you to do in the in-game. And then there's also stuff to keep players coming back for more loot and better gear in the in-game. It's pretty much like his brief summary of the in-game. Now, when asked about raids, he did say that there will be raids in the game, but of course, because it is an in-game comment, they will be spoken about later. So he's still not ready to talk about it. But what he did have to say on a side note to that is that they will definitely be different from strongholds, and they emphasize that they will be different from strongholds. So that's something that I'm glad he mentioned, because by the looks of things with all the interviews, it seemed like at least that strongholds were going to be our in-game activity for the higher level players. Well, apparently that's not the case, because there will be a raid or raids in the game that are different from strongholds. So strongholds aren't going to be our in-game be-all, activity. We will have raids in the game, as well as strongholds that they did say do drop, powerful items for you as well in the game. So that's something that I thought was pretty cool. So there will be raids and strongholds for in-game content to drop pretty high gear for you in-game. Now, they of course mentioned PvP in terms of in-game, and they said right now at the moment Anthem is more of a co-op experience at heart. And when thinking about PvP, there's a lot of weapons they'd have to balance. And they said at the moment, BioWare isn't even considering working on this, or even choosing to work on this, which I've mentioned before, I'm 100% okay with, because PvP in a game like this would be the same effect to what happened with Destiny. We saw what happened with the Vex Mythoclast. You earn a godly PvE weapon from completing a raid, and then people start taking it to Crucible, and it gets nerfed in a heartbeat. So all that grinding for this godly weapon, and now you can't even use it in PvE because it's nerfed so bad. So I'm okay with there not being PvP, because again, like he mentioned, there would be a balancing issue when it comes to weapons. So I'd rather have stronger weapons in PvE than have to worry about them nerfing things if they were being able to be introduced in PvP. So I'm okay with that. Now, they kind of went on to talk about friends, which I covered again. I don't know why he kind of brought this back up, but I'll mention it anyway. They said if you don't have any friends online, or don't have friends in general to play this game, they said there is a system in place to provide a social experience, and it will always be easy to play with others and filter for activities that you want to do in game. So it doesn't seem like there's only going to be a matchmaking system. It seems like there may be a system in place for you to find people in game that you'll also be able to do certain missions with, and that can also help you out with certain activities. So that's something really cool in a game like this that's very multiplayer focused. I'm really glad that they're implementing something like this in the game. Now, this is the last thing on my notes, and I wanted to save it for last because I know this is probably, outside of the sniper rifles, has been my next biggest question that I always get, and it's about the Interceptor. And when asked about the Interceptor, all he had to say was, more will be shown on the Interceptor in late summer 2018, which right now it's July, and summer ends about mid-August, depending on, whenever school starts. It's like, end of July, mid-August. So we should all be seeing some Interceptor details pretty soon, which I still think is weird that they're not showing Interceptor and Storm because we don't have too much information on the Storm, but we should be getting Interceptor information within a couple of weeks, to be honest, because it's July right now. So 4 to 5 weeks, we might actually be getting some brand new Interceptor, probably gameplay, information, weapons, different abilities and stuff like that. So we'll be getting more Interceptor information for all you players who have been asking about Interceptor and who've been watching my Interceptor videos that I have been seeing go up in views. We'll get more information on that for sure late 2018, like I said, either at the end of July or mid-August, because like I said, that's when summer essentially ends. So we should be getting information on that very soon. So that's everything that he's pretty much covered in the video. That's everything that I've taken notes of. That's pretty much all the Anthem information I have at the moment. Now, of course, there's always new stuff on Twitter that Mark Dara's asking. There's always new information coming out, different interviews with different game outlets. Like I said, I will always be bringing you the newest and most up-to-date information on Anthem whenever it comes out. Again, this interview is probably out for a couple days. Like I've said in my previous videos, even if I don't bring it out the first day, it's because I'm pretty much compiling everything together because I'm trying to give you as much information as possible in one video so that you all can kind of get it, and I'm not just bringing you a video every day of every tweet that gets announced or every this that gets announced. I'd rather it be in one condensed video for everybody to watch at one point. So, like I said, that's all I got for today in this video. Thank you guys for watching. Again, I'm sorry if this video is a little too long, but I wanted to give you guys all this information from that Game Informer interview with the game director of Anthem. So, I will catch you guys on the next time. I'll probably have another Anthem video in a day or two as well. I'll be streaming Warframe tonight, and then the Sacrifice update for Warframe comes out tomorrow. I'll be doing a stream for that and a giveaway on stream during the Sacrifice, and I'll be streaming the quest and everything like that. So I have that happening tomorrow, but that's all I got. And then, like I said, Monday I'll be doing the video for the 500 sub giveaway. So thank you all for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.